Well, I am really excited to be here with you all and um, here to share a little bit of my wisdom and my magic with you all as we are going to dive into a little bit of how cycle tracking and fertility awareness has really changed my life. And since learning how to track my cycle, I've become a certified instructor, a certified reproductive and sexual health educator, and it's my mission to share this information with as many wombs that want it. Um, my vision is that we all have this like informed information and we can really choose and make choices that are going to be best for our bodies through it. So, just a little bit about my story before I jump in. I was 28 years old on the picture on the left, and I had been on 8 years of hormonal birth control. And then I came off of it and did not have a plan. And I had an unplanned pregnancy. And I had just decided to go through a pregnancy release. And this was sort of the aftermath of what state I was in. I felt really lost, really disconnected from my body and my creativity. I was really self-conscious and unsure of myself, just always second guessing my choices and not trusting my intuition. And through that, I ended up giving my power away a lot to to other people, to doctors, to a partner. And 8 years later, I have just grown so much into the woman that I've always dreamed of. And a huge part of that has been my cycle charting practice. And so I changed my careers and really went full in to bring this information to um, for it to be common knowledge. That's my dream. So through this simple ritual, I understand myself on a whole new level. I I am able to tune into how I feel, what I need, and how I want to show up in the world each day. This ritual really gave me permission to be constantly changing and to be in my own rhythm. I no longer felt pressure to be sort of the robotic um, person of like showing up the same exact way each day. I really gained a lot of insight into my consumption and how my choices through food, media, products, environment, travel really impact my health and well-being for good and for bad. I really have learned how to trust my body. And so I'm no longer giving that away to things externally. And that came, I'm still working, still working on that. I feel like that's a lifelong journey, but I'm just learning how to trust my intuition even more. And I have new language for how to advocate for myself, not only to my doctors, but like to my partner, my partners, to my family, to my friends, to my sisters. Um, I, you know, I love starting a conversation, which Erica and I did immediately. It's like where you are in your cycle, like what energy, like how can I like hold your energy and my energy, and like it just gives like a nice like foundational connection. um, I took control over my reproductive future. And so after having an abortion, going through a pregnancy release, I realized I had no idea what was going on in my body. And I've talked to a lot of people where, You know, it's like we've been living in these bodies for so many years, and we haven't been taught just the foundational pieces of how they work. And I can, you know, just attest that you're never too late, too old to learn about these aspects of ourselves. And what's maybe the most exciting is that I feel like I have even more pleasure in my life. And that is because I'm more tuned into my own desires. I accept how they change on a cyclical basis. And I also understand more about how my sexual energy wants to be expressed because I'm tuned into my hormones and how my hormones impact, you know, how I want to be intimate. And I'm also no longer scared or anxious about intimacy, which I really was for many, many years. I know a lot of us tend to hold that. And I realized that my cycle really mattered. It's more than just about fertility. It's this part of myself that was deeply connected to my creativity and to my vitality. And I also realized just how much of a window our cycles are into our health because our cycle is woven into all of these bigger systems in our body. And so our cycle's downstream from all of these systems and usually is the first thing to be impacted. So really using our cycle as a tool for achieving greater states of health and well-being is just a huge part of preventative healthcare and something that I think all of us should have awareness about so that we can better advocate for ourselves and get the support that we all deserve. So by connecting to my cycle, I became sovereign, empowered, like a true expert, an advocate for my body, and also a guide for our future. So I feel like a lot of us that are doing this womb work and doing this body literacy piece, like really diving into this information, we're really shifting the narrative to around menstruation, fertility, reproduction that have like we all know there's so much stigma still attached to these like normal natural parts of ourselves. And by tracking your cycle, by doing this work, we can really become models and advocates for a culture that values body literacy, like values our bodies, values this self-empowerment, this reclamation of power, and values holistic health. So just by being here, you're being that guide, you're being that shift for our future generations. So thanks for showing up. So what is fertility awareness? This is a broader overarching term, but essentially it's just bringing awareness to changes in your cycle so that you can connect to your unique rhythm. And there are many ways that people do this and don't necessarily have a specific method. Many of us are charting our cycles in different ways. We may be tracking like when our period is coming, or we may be tuning into our mood and our energy levels and maybe noticing when things maybe get a little bit clunky right before our period or right after ovulation. When we're like, maybe some of us are tracking the moon cycles, the lunar cycles, and tuning into the full moon and the new moon energy and how that's related to our cycle. Maybe we're tracking our arousal and desire. So maybe we're tapping into that and just noticing when we are desiring more intimacy in different ways. Or we're tracking maybe our external appearance. So if we're having cyclical acne and other PMS symptoms. Cycle tracking takes it to sort of this deeper layer, this deeper level, and it tracks specific signs of our fertility. And so basal body temperature is our resting temperature. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that is one of the fertility markers that people will track when they're tracking their cycle, and I'll explain a little bit why too. Cervical secretions and vaginal secretions. So this image here, the cervix is the lower part of the uterus that sits in the vaginal canal. And this part of our bodies actually changes. So it changes in height, texture, and openness. So, regardless of whether or not we want to conceive or get pregnant, our body goes through these natural cycles on a monthly ish basis. And you can actually feel your cervix by inserting your longest finger into your vaginal canal and reaching up to the very top, and it'll feel kind of like the tip of your nose. And you'll notice if you are tracking this that your cervix will change when different hormones are present in your cycle. And your cervix actually produces a few different types of secretions or fluids that, again, are related to the hormones that are produced. So, by tracking these fluids, I think about our bodies as being leaky, like our tears, if anybody has experienced breastfeeding, like milk, our blood, and then we'll just add another leaky aspect which is our cervical fluid. And so that is our elixir of fertility. That is what keeps sperm alive long enough to reach an egg. And without it, we wouldn't be able to reproduce. And it's developed in the cervix, secreted but in the cervix, and it happens around the time of ovulation. So that's another marker that we can use. And then some people will also track their urinary hormones through LH strips or devices. That's not part of the method that I teach, so I mainly focus on basal body temperature, cervical secretions, and cervical changes. And so, why are people tracking their cycles? There's so many different reasons. Uh, One of which is preparing for conception. So, getting our bodies really nourished and healthy before we want to conceive. Um, maybe some people want to use this for non-hormonal birth control while they're getting ready to conceive. So that's another option here. But the non-hormonal birth control is a huge perk of using cycle tracking and is what I've been using for my main form of birth control over the last 8 years. Also, some people come to this method because they're trying to figure out some hormonal imbalances. Maybe they're having trouble getting pregnant, or maybe just been noticing some irregular cycles, and they really want to get at the root of how they can best support their body. There are some young people that are coming into this world, and cycle tracking can really support them during menarche, and that's the first period. Gosh, I can't imagine what my life would be like if I was tracking my cycle when I got my period. But some teens are doing it, and it can really help young people establish their rhythm during adolescence because that can be a time of some clunky puberty things happening in the body. And then other people come because they feel like this deep need to connect with themselves and to the seasons of life and to the greater creative life force that we're all here because of and that we are all contributing to. And so I feel like there's a depth there that most people that come into cycle tracking eventually sort of connect with. Maybe not right away, but it tends to just sort of naturally happen. So there's a spiritual aspect of it. And then some people may be trying to conceive in alternative ways. So, cycle charting can help with insemination. It can help with timing for insemination. It can support timing like other interventions like IUI. And also people that may not be able to afford reproductive technologies or want to try an intervention that's not as extreme before doing like IVF or something like that, might track their cycles. And then there's also people that are looking for that like optimal health, and they're like doing like biohacking and all of the things to like cycle sync, and really just like nourish their bodies deeply. And so no matter like where you are in this, why you're here or what you're interested in, there's definitely ways that cycle tracking can support you and support you through many life transitions. So how does it actually work? Just to orient you, I know this looks a little bit complicated and sciencey, but I'm going to simplify it to the best of my ability. So there's really two phases of our cycle. There's our follicular phase, which starts the first day of our period and goes until ovulation. And then there's the luteal phase, which runs from ovulation up until the day before we start to bleed again. And in each of these phases, there's a dominant hormone that's being produced, and that's going to impact those fertility signs that I spoke about. So it's going to impact our cervix, our secretions, and our basal body temperature. So the hormone that is secreted initially and is most dominant during the follicular phase is estrogen. And estrogen, if you can think about it more energetically, estrogen is like evoking, it's opening, it's stimulating, it's growing, and that's what it does in our body. So estrogen has an impact on our cervix. And so when estrogen is the most high, which is around the time of ovulation, our cervix becomes soft, high in the vaginal canal, and open. So again, regardless of whether or not we want to conceive, our body is going through this process. And you can think the cervix, I like to think of it as the guardian or the gatekeeper to our womb. And so the guardian is relaxing, is opening, is becoming more receptive to potentially receive. And the estrogen also impacts the cervix and the cervical secretions. And so we'll start to see different secretions when there's more estrogen in our system, when we're closer to ovulation. And the secretions can be categorized as watery, stretchy, slippery, or clear. So if you have any cervical fluid that looks like that, you are likely in a time of fertility and potentially close to ovulation. We also can see what's called our baseline fluid, which is just our regular vaginal moisture. So that's when our body is not showing any signs of fertility. And then you can see the basal body temperature in our follicular phase because of estrogen is lower. And then once we ovulate, we start producing progesterone. And progesterone can only be produced after ovulation. And that's because the cells that are supporting the egg, the follicles that are supporting the egg, after ovulation occurs, those follicles turn into a temporary endocrine gland, which is amazing that this happens literally every cycle. And this temporary endocrine gland starts producing progesterone. And so how that affects our body is it progestation. You can think about like we're cooking a little bun in there, so it kicks up our temperature. And it also, progesterone is the protector. So progesterone closes off our cervix and makes it more firm. So we're not sort of open anymore. We're protecting what we potentially have conceived. And then progesterone creates a different type of fluid, which is also known as luteal fluid. So by tracking these three aspects of our fertility, we can make choices for ourselves in whatever we desire. So we can use it to support pregnancy, we can use it for birth control, we can use it just to understand the health and wellness of our cycle too, to identify if we're having ovulatory cycles or not. And we can also use this to help us as we transition. Maybe that's from adolescence into that maiden mother energy, or maybe it's from the maiden into menopause. So we can, again, use this method and support our needs throughout our life. So I'm just going to show you quickly a few charts and what an actual chart looks like. So this, and I have some free charts to download on my website. If you want a free chart, you can go there and download a free chart and just kind of check it out. So there's a place to put intimacy, and then your wave codes, so, or your fertile window codes. So this is for people that are identifying the time that they're fertile in their chart. And then there's a place for your secretion code. So this is where your period goes. This would be baseline. They're not seeing just regular vaginal moisture. They're not seeing any, signs of fertility. And then they start seeing some different fluids, and they are describing them as thick, creamy, little stretchy, clear, lots of stretch. And so by tracking their secretions, you can see that they are showing some clear signs of fertility. This blue box is just marking the time of their cycle when they are fertile. Using this method for birth control is pretty advanced, so I would really recommend working with a provider to support you and making sure that you are really confident in understanding how to open your fertile window and also how to close it. And there's a lot of guidelines for when having intercourse is low risk or high risk or no risk. So this person is also tracking their cervix, so you can see they are using texture for medium and soft, and then openness and height. And then this is where this person has tracked their temperatures, and you can see the temperatures. It's a little oriented differently, but you can see there's two ranges of temperatures. So there's a low range and a high range. So this would be their follicular phase, and this would be their luteal phase. Here's one more example, and this is from the Read Your Body app, which is my preferred app because they don't make any predictions for you. So you really have that power and you make all the predictions for yourself. There's a lot of reasons why predictive apps are great and a lot of reasons why they're not great. And if you're using them for birth control, I would highly recommend educating yourself and just making sure that you're really understanding how they're predicting your cycle. And here's just some different imbalances that you can find when you're looking at your chart. And this isn't to scare you, but this is to like show you that like this is a piece of data that can really support you in getting the support that you need, advocating for your health needs, getting labs done, like all the things. I definitely have used my cycle to really give me the best health that I can in this body. So what is that 3-minute daily ritual that I've been talking about? And it's simple, and it's as quick as brushing your teeth in the morning and the evening. It does take some time to learn because you're learning how to communicate and to listen to your body, but just know that that wisdom is already within you. So it's just, there is a little bit of a learning curve, and after that, it's like super easy. And all of us wake up in the morning. So the first part of the ritual is to take your temperature first thing when you wake up. All of us go to the bathroom, I'm assuming. And so we're just adding a few more steps in terms of checking your secretions when you are going to the bathroom. And then you journal your observations into a paper chart or an app, and you learn how to interpret these signs. and that's it. So it's simple and such profound opportunity to reprogram and rewrite a lot of these stories that we have around our bodies. So what do you need to get started? I would recommend just a regular basal body thermometer. A fever thermometer is not sensitive enough. We really need that precision and sensitivity. And to be honest, I've been using the same thermometer my entire 8 years, and it was $15 on Amazon. So like, you do not need like a bunch of fancy thermometers. You can totally get a fancy thermometer, but my preference is still like a cheapy thermometer, and I've just had to change the batteries once. So just a paper chart or an app. Again, I recommend the Read Your Body app. Education or support from a trained educator. Trusting in your own wisdom, right? Like, you know your body the best, and this practice is like helping you like really feel that confidence. And then just a little self-compassion and patience as you learn these new things about yourself. So some of the free resources that are available are the free paper charts. My favorite book for DIY learning is called Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Toni Weschler. And she's actually putting out, like, I think a 10-year updated edition in 2025. So I'm super excited to get that updated book. There's many Facebook groups and Reddit groups out there. I just want to caution you that not everybody that's giving you their opinion is a certified educator, and so you might get various opinions. There's also many different types of fertility awareness methods out there. So you could be using one type, and somebody could be giving you advice that's using a different type. So that's important to know. And there's also 1 month free on the Read Your Body app. So you can download that app and check it out. And then after that, I think it's like $17 a year or a few bucks a month for a monthly subscription. So those are some free resources. And then I have just a fun little activity to do. Myth or fact? You can get pregnant any day of your cycle. So I kind of answered this one already, but I always like to start with this one. Okay, wait, let me see.
That's a fact.
So that's a myth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you cannot get pregnant every day, any day of your cycle. You have a specific time where you're fertile in your cycle, when you're producing cervical fluid, and right around the time of ovulation. And after that, if you're no longer producing cervical fluid and your egg has dissolved, then you cannot get pregnant. So there's a nice chunk of your cycle that you can have unprotected sex, exposure to seminal fluid, and not be worried about getting pregnant. So busting that myth right there. You can get pregnant during your period, myth or fact? So you can get pregnant during your period. For those of us who have shorter cycles, like 21 days and shorter, or even 25 days and shorter, you could start producing cervical fluid during your period. And period, like your blood would obscure your cervical fluid, so you wouldn't be able to see it. So there have been some instances where people have gotten pregnant during their periods. Okay, myth or fact, PMS and painful periods are normal and should be expected. That's totally a myth. So if you have friends that are like not able to go out in public, that are not able to do the normal everyday things in their life, that are like getting nauseous or just doubling over in pain, like, please help a sister out, help a friend out, and let them know that they deserve some support for this, because that shouldn't be normalized. Okay, another myth or fact, cycles are 28 days and ovulation happens on day 14. Yeah. Yep, this is another myth. So, about 20% of us actually have 28-day cycles, and the rest of us flux between 28 days up to 30, I think 34 days is still considered within the range of typical. And then if you have like a hormonal difference, like PCOS or something like that, it's typical for you to have longer cycles than that and to not ovulate on cycle day 14. Okay, another myth or fact. You can ovulate more than once in a cycle. This is a trick question. It's a trick myth or fact. Technically, you can ovulate more than one egg, but you have a window of ovulation. That's how twins happen. So an egg is viable for 12 to, the fraternal twins, 12 to 24 hours. And within that time, you can ovulate more than one egg. But after your body starts producing progesterone, then everything that tells your body that no more eggs, right? Because we're not like a cat where we can like just have multiple litters with different sperm, right? Like we carry up 9 months. It wouldn't make sense for us to have a baby that was a certain gestation age and then a baby that was another gestation age. So our body has like a safety mechanism for that. So you can ovulate more than one egg, but there's only a certain window for ovulation. When our body starts producing progesterone, that's telling our body that we're in a different part of our cycle. Yes, so you can release more eggs as you get older, but your cycles get shorter. So when you're like going into perimenopause, what happens is your body's like, okay, we're gonna like, make this happen. And so our cycles get shorter and it increases different hormones. So we release more eggs, but it's still within a cycle. Great question. And then last myth or fact, all bleeds are real periods. What's your thoughts on that one? Yes, this is a myth. So you can have a bleed that is not considered a true period. And this happens a lot with people that have much longer cycles. So PCOS, they're called withdrawal bleeds. And so essentially the body, estrogen is building the lining, and then progesterone is what holds the lining in place. And so because there's not that progesterone, the body will let go some of the lining. And so you could have a bleed in the middle of your cycle, but it's not related to ovulation. It could also be spotting. It could also look like spotting. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It looks different for different bodies. Thanks so much for being here, and I'm super excited because I'm launching my first self-paced cycle charting course by this new year, and my goal was for it to be financially accessible because a lot of fertility awareness educators are all private pay, and my dream is to just like have this information available to all of those people that want it. So that's like just a basic charting course that you can do, again, self-paced. And if you sign up for my newsletters, you'll get all of the links and the discount codes for that, because I'll probably run a little like coupon code for it in the beginning. And then I do master classes for birth control related to coming off of long-term hormonal birth control and during the postpartum time. And I also do some private consults for those that are trying to conceive. So those are various different sort of lengths. It really depends, but you can always schedule like a free discovery call with me, and we can sort of talk more about like how what your needs are and what would make the most sense.